So now let us start with the revision of the topic SA 299 joint audit. So in the case of joint audit, there is more than one auditor who is auditing the financial statements. You can take the example of Reliance Industries Limited. It has three auditors: Chaturvedi and Shah, Deloitte Haskins and Sells LLP, and Rajendra and Company. So these three audit firms conduct audit of Reliance Industries Limited. So there are three auditors. Okay, so these three auditors are collectively known as joint auditors. Okay, so the concept of joint auditors is particularly very common in case of nationalized banks. So what is this joint audit? So joint audit is basically where you appoint multiple firms or individuals as statutory auditors, that is your external auditors, to combine their expertise and resources for the audit. So why are you appointing more than one auditor? Because you want to combine the expertise and resources for the audit. Okay, so there are many advantages of joint audit as well as disadvantages. First, let's look at the advantages. So in case of joint audit, there is you are combining the expertise and also the resources. So in case of expertise, there is sharing of expertise and expertise of local firms. For example, see, Deloitte is not locally from India, it's from another country, but it is carrying on its audit in India. So what did Reliance do over here? It took two local auditors as well as an international auditor. So because of this, what is it doing? It is basically combining their expertise. So there is sharing of expertise and also there is expertise of local firms, because the local firms will only know better about the laws and regulations and the regulatory environments over here. Okay, so the first advantage is expertise. There is sharing of expertise and expertise of local firms. Next, there is mutual consultation. Okay, so in case of joint audit, there is mutual consultation and there is better quality of performance. Because there is more than one auditor, the work will be divided among them. There is no stress or pressure. Each auditor will do their work. There is quality of performance. There is improved service to the client. The client will get better service, okay? And there is lower workload, lower staff development costs, and the cost to carry out the work is also lower. And ultimately, there is healthy competition because there is more than one auditor. So what are the advantages? There is expertise in respect of sharing of expertise and expertise of local firms. There is mutual consultation. There is better quality of performance, improved service to the client, as well as lower workload and staff development costs. And the cost to carry on the work also becomes lower. There is ultimately healthy competition. But there are also a few disadvantages in joint audit. So what are the disadvantages? First and foremost, the fees will get shared. If only one auditor is taking the audit, the entire fees will be given to the single auditor. But in case of joint audit, the fees are getting shared among the auditors. There is a psychological problem because when you have more than one auditor, there will be a superiority and inferiority complex. So there is a psychological problem and as well as superiority complex and inferiority complex, common points. And there is problems in coordination of work. Okay, sometimes the coordination between both auditors is not as expected. There are problems in coordination of work and the areas of common concern are neglected. Okay, there are areas which are of common concern. Both the auditors need to put their attention or focus towards it. But what is happening? Because of the joint audit, the common concerned areas are getting neglected. There is uncertainty about liability of work done. Okay, so basically the liability of the work is not certain. To which auditor should I give this liability? There is uncertainty about liability, and because of this, the areas of the common concern are neglected. Okay, common points. So there are advantages and disadvantages. Disadvantages: the fees are getting shared. There is psychological problem. There is superiority complex, problems of coordination of work, areas of common concern are getting neglected, and uncertainty about liability of work done. Next, we have audit planning, risk assessment, and allocation of work. So in the case of joint audit, how is the audit plan? How is the risk assessed? And how is the work allocated between more than one auditor, that is the joint auditors? So for example, in case of Reliance, there are three joint auditors. Okay. So in each joint audit team, there is an engagement team. Okay. Each joint auditor has an engagement team, and engagement team consists of engagement partners and other key members. Okay. So basically the engagement partners and other key members of each joint auditor is involved in the planning. Okay. And the joint auditors, they jointly establish the overall audit strategy. In case of a single external auditor, that single auditor will establish overall audit strategy. But in case of joint auditors, they will jointly establish the overall audit strategy and they will set the scope, timing, direction of the audit. Okay, so the first point, the engagement partner and other key members are involved in planning. The joint auditors will jointly establish the overall audit strategy to set the scope, timing, and direction of the audit. And before starting the audit, like you're about to start an audit, before starting the audit, you will discuss and develop your joint audit plan. You will identify the areas and division, the common areas, to define each joint audit scope. So what are the areas and what are the divisions of division in work, and what are the common areas which will ultimately define each joint auditor's scope. Next, you will ascertain the reporting objectives, that is the timing and communication of the plan. So once you have drafted a plan, how much like on a timely basis you will communicate it. So what is the timing for communicating your plan? Because there is more than one auditor, you have to make sure that you're communicating the information to your client at a proper time. So the timing and the communication of your plan, the reporting objectives. And next we have communicating significant factors. So if there are any significant factors, you have to communicate it to your client. And you should consider the results of preliminary engagement activities and relevance of knowledge on similar engagement activities as well. Ultimately, nature, extent and timing of necessary resources. How will you use what timing, what is the extent to which you will use, what is the nature of the necessary resources which you will use before starting the audit. Next, the joint auditor will consider, assess, communicate and document risk of middle misstatement. He will consider, assess and communicate the risk of middle misstatement, and he will also document whether the risk pertains to overall financial statements or specific audit areas. Okay. Next, he will apply audit procedures. The joint auditors will apply audit procedures to obtain the nature, extent and timing of specific audit areas. They will document them as well, common and specific audit areas, and he will communicate it to TCWG. The joint auditor will also obtain common engagement letter and common management representation letter. Okay, so he will obtain, see, there are more than one joint auditors, 3 joint auditors. They will obtain a common engagement letter, and they will also give common management representation letter. Okay. Next, we have responsibility and coordination among joint auditors. Okay, so in case of joint auditors, they are first responsible for the work that is allocated to them. Okay, they're not only responsible for the work allocated to them, but they're also jointly and severally responsible for the work that is not divided between them as well. First, whatever work that is being allocated to you, you are responsible for that. But apart from that, you're also jointly and severally responsible for the work that is not divided between them also. Okay, you're responsible for the decisions which is taken by all the joint auditors. If one joint auditor notices a matter, so when one joint auditor, when he's doing his audit, he notices a matter which is other joint auditor's responsibility. So I'm doing the audit, and in between there's a point where I'm struck. So this point is the other joint auditor's responsibility, but it is relevant for me. So I have to consult the other joint auditor, and there should be an agreement between both the joint auditors. So the next point is financial statements comply with relevant statutes. You have to examine whether the financial statements are complying with the relevant statutes or not. Next, presentation and disclosure as per applicable financial reporting framework. And the audit report should be as per the statutes, as per the standards on auditing, and also as per the IFCI pronouncements. Okay. Next point. While doing the audit, if one joint auditor, see there are 2 joint auditors, joint auditor 2 finds a matter that is relevant to joint auditor 1, then he requires joint auditors 1's attention, disclosure, discussion and judgment. Okay, see, basically that other joint auditor has to disclose a few things. He has to discuss with the other joint auditor, and he requires a judgment of the other joint auditor. Okay, so then basically joint auditor will communicate to joint auditor 1 in writing. Okay, so if you find any matter that is relevant to the other joint auditor, that matter requires other joint auditors attention, disclosure, discussion or judgment, then the joint auditor will communicate to the joint auditor 1 in writing. Okay, now each joint auditor is responsible for applying nature, extent and timing of audit procedures. They're responsible for risk assessment. They're responsible for studying and evaluating internal control to their allocated work areas. For your allocated work areas, you are responsible for applying risk assessment. You're responsible for studying and evaluating internal control. You're also responsible for the nature, extent and timing of the audit procedures for your allocated work areas. So this is the responsibility and coordination among the joint auditors. Next, we have audit conclusion and reporting. So ultimately, when the audit is it's nearing to the end, you have to conclude and you have to report. Then the joint auditors will give a common audit report. And if there is a disagreement between joint auditor 1 and joint auditor 2, when there is more than one auditor, there are cases when there is a disagreement between them. In that case, you have to give a separate audit report. Okay, and each joint auditor is not bound by the views of the majority auditors, because majority auditors are doing one thing. You are not bound by it. Okay, you don't have to do the same thing. You are independent in respect of your allocated work area. You're not bound by the views of the majority auditors. Next, when you're giving your report see, the common audit report should have reference to the separate reports. Okay, so each joint auditor will give a separate report and there will be a common report. In common report, you have to refer to the separate reports. Okay, and your separate reports should refer to the common audit report. There should also be a reference in other matter paragraph as per SA 706. So this was about joint audit SA 299.